we meet Raito Sasaki, a young high school gamer. His game of choice: Apex. He has been playing it for a long time, putting in the hours, but his skills don't have anything to show for it. Every match he queues up for leads to a loss for our boy, and he's stuck in bronze. Sick of his lack of skills and not knowing how he should improve, he's decided that he's going to spend some of his saved up money on some coaching lessons from a pro player. After some deliberation, he finally pulls the trigger and buys some face-to-face coaching lessons from whom he thought to be a normal pro Apex player. The doorbell rings, and to his surprise, at his doorstep is a young gal with piercings, pink hair, and flashy clothes about the same age as him, ready to coach him. He starts his first game of the day with her sitting behind him, analyzing his gameplay while he's trying his best to focus on the monitor that's in front of him, instead of the girl that is standing behind his shoulder. Her name is Rion Suzuki. She's ranked number 10 worldwide and is playing for a professional team called Fantasy Gaming, and while she's here to help coach his Apex games, currently her presence seems to be doing more bad than good to our boy's psyche. But he's spent too much money on these lessons to let them go to waste, so he takes his gamer stance and gets serious. Right then, she leans in to give him a tip about the in-game minimap, putting her boobas on his shoulder and letting him catch a whiff of her. Redder than a tomato, with the last drop of reasoning he still has, he apologizes because he accidentally touched her, but she was too caught up in his gameplay to even realize what happened, instead saying that he's got nothing to apologize for. Whatever he did during his panic was a good move in Ryan's eyes. But in the end it doesn't matter, he ends up dying miserably and losing that game. Seeing as he has a lot of areas to improve upon, she sits her butt on his bed and they start devising up a plan on how they should go about improving his skills and ultimately redeem the embarrassing show he just put on. His major concern seems to be his own aiming skill, but instead of that, she thinks that rather his reflex seems to be the root limiting factor of his skills, which of course would lead him to have poor aim. While thinking of how to help improve his reflexes, she gets the bright idea that she should teach him through his body. Without a second thought, she kneels down beside his chair and commits the highest level of adultery, unprotected hand-holding, in an attempt to show him her own reflexes through his body. Young G is quacking in his socks, but he cools down and tries his absolute best to absorb her reflexes in the best way possible. After what probably felt like the longest game of his life and a lot more verbal coaching from Master Ryan, he manages to get 4 kills, setting a new personal best. Somehow her questionable coaching actually worked. As a reward, she thinks of congratulating him, and starts playing with his fingers sensual style, while telling him to never forget what he's feeling right now, making the whole situation even more dubious than before, and leaving Raito confused as hell. I'd call that positive reinforcement. With his newfound knowledge, he queues up for a new match, but sadly this time around it ends just as fast as it begins, leaving Raito feeling down, partly for not showing much progress to Ryan. Seeing Raito in this sad state, Master Ryan tries cheering him up and asks if he would like to watch her play a game, for a change of pace, giving him the opportunity to also maybe pick up on her techniques. She ties her hair in a ponytail, puts on her earbuds and immediately starts speaking to her teammates on voice chat, something that Raito doesn't yet have the guts to do. He is amazed at her play style, noting how she instantly resolves any sticky situation she might get herself into and always communicates with her teammates, like a pro would. Of course she wins the game and says her final GGs to her teammates, before parting ways with them. Raito, being very impressed, immediately lights up and starts saying how that was an awesome performance. She was in complete sync with her teammates, even taking out enemies that had the high ground. Without giving it much thought, Raito says that Ryan was incredibly cool while playing that game. But this mindless compliment seems to have awakened something inside Ryan, probably never had been called that before. She starts being all fidgety and says that in this case she should show him more of her cool tricks in a second game. She wins her second game in a row, again leaving Raito impressed at how sick that was. But this time, after they settle down, they notice that Ryan has received a message from one of her previous teammates. Being on some hater shit, the guy tells her to not think that she was the reason they won that game, saying that the only reason the team was nice to her is because she is a girl. While she definitely was the reason they won, she doesn't take such insults to heart, saying that she kind of got used to them, since she's been getting such messages forever, especially because she's a girl. She tries leaving it at that, but Raito notices that she is in fact a bit demoralized and steps in, saying that it's not okay for anyone to get used to things that end up hurting them. Raito was just speaking his mind out, but it seems that what he just said had left Rion feeling a bit hot again. She turns around to him and says that even though he probably didn't notice it, he just said something really good. She starts making fun of his apparent confusion and says that maybe they should take a break for a little while, turning this into more of a hangout session instead of a coaching one. He goes downstairs to grab some snacks for the hungry Rion. On his way back he remembers that this is the first time since elementary school that he's had someone over in his room. Right as he opens the door, Rion jumps at him with an amazed look on her face. While he was gone, she started digging through his games and found a copy of Call of Duty. She says that she's heard of it but never actually played any other games except for Apex. Raito is a bit taken aback that she's this good without ever actually playing anything else, but nonetheless, he lets her know that she can borrow the game if she'd like to play it. She's still looking through his game collection when she notices that he has some pretty old school games lying around. Raito says that he had a friend who was into those kinds of games when he was little. He picked them up while hanging out with that person and just kind of went down the rabbit hole afterwards, collecting all the games she sees now. Then out of nowhere, she then notices a familiar box on a higher up shelf and immediately reaches out to it. But Raito knows that that box is so high up for a very good reason. That box has more than meets the eye to it. He tries stopping her from opening it, but it's too late. Rion opens the game case and finds Raito's degenerate games that he's been hiding from his parents in there. Rion instantly switches gears, but she doesn't seem be so affected by it and instead, calmly puts it back, and asks Raito if she can have some of the chips he brought in earlier, giving off the impression that it wasn't such a big deal for her. Of course he'd have stuff like that lying around, he's a boy. But it was all an act to cover her beet red face. She turns her back on Raito and tries using the chips as a decoy for her burning cheeks, looking like a lost puppy. It was in fact the first time Rion had ever seen stuff like that. While she is sitting in his chair still looking embarrassed, Raito tries thinking of some small talk to brighten the mood after what just happened. He's got it. He asks her how old she is, at which she replies that she's just 1 year older than him, and in high school. Raito was under the impression that she is way older and is very surprised that even though she's a student she's also a pro Apex player. That must take some real dedication and smarts. She then goes on to say that she goes to Denyu High. That name does in fact ring a bell with Raito. He goes to exactly the same high school. Upon hearing that, she jumps on the bed next to him, psyched that she's just found a new friend at school, especially since they both share the same hobby. But Raito lets her know that in the 2 weeks since he has enrolled, he actually barely went to school. Not for any particular reason though, his ass is just lazy. While pondering this situation he suddenly blurts out if him starting to go to school more often would make her happier, that way maybe they could hang out more. Realizing what he just said, he tells her to forget about it since it sounded out of pocket. But she is delighted at that idea. They could talk about games together and have Raito give her more compliments, something that Rion obviously enjoys, leaving Raito to question his future game plan. But anyways, the break is over. It's about time they got back to coaching. He's 3 games in, he got 10th place in the first one, died instantly in the second one, tough luck, and this one just ended with him taking 3rd place, his best game to date. He's happy but not quite satisfied since there's still a bit more to go until 1st place. He looks up to the clock and sees that there's just 1 more hour left of their coaching lessons. With this in mind he queues up for a new one, with the determination to take 1st place and show Rion that he has improved thanks to her coaching. Just before starting though Rion grabs Raito by the collar and lets him know that she believes in him just like he should believe in her. With a flushed look on his face, he thanks her for hyping him up and turns around for his game. He's doing better than ever, playing his absolute best. Rion lets him know that there are just 3 more teams remaining. He engages into the final battle, but contrary to his previous games, this time he actually wins. He did it, he just won his first game with help from Master Rion in a single day. Stoked, he turns around to Rion, but to his surprise he finds her sitting on his bed crying over the fact that he's the first person she's ever coached and he's improved this much thanks to her. Just then, the alarm that Raito has set for their session rings, shocking Rion at how fast time just flew by and at the same time kind of leaving her disappointed that it ended, since she was having so much fun with him. Raito says his thanks to Rion because in the end he managed to greatly improve his Apex games thanks to her, but she stops him before he can get any more words in. She She has a slight pout on her face, because all this time, Raito has been calling her by her family name, Suzuki. She'd like him to use her first name Rion. And also Raito using the expression, in the end, sounds kinda sad, like they're not going to see each other anymore. This time using her first name, he explains that the reason he said, in the end, is because he'll need to actually get a job or something before he can hire her for another coaching lesson. But Rion has some other plans in mind. She drops the paid coaching and instead asks Raito to exchange friend codes with her, this way they can hit each other up for whatever reason. She never actually got to play a game with Raito as her teammate. Raito hesitates for a second, not wanting to impose. But Rion seems kind of sad, because she thinks that maybe Raito just doesn't want to actually play Apex with her or be friends with her at all. Seeing her current stance, he folds and just gives her his Apex friend code. Of course that's what she was talking about. Raito goes downstairs to see Rion out. She again tells Raito to feel free to send her an invite whenever he's looking to play with her or even chat, but then notices that Raito has been kind of quiet since she started putting on her shoes, which swiftly prompts her to tease him a little, saying that maybe he just doesn't want her to leave. But Raito had his mind on the grind. He was actually reflecting on the session they just had. He has his doubts about whether he can actually continue to improve his games. She then asks him the simple question about whether he actually wants to improve. He of course responds yes, at which she lets him know that in that case, he for sure will. She gives him the Rion guarantee that it's going to happen. He goes on to say that he wants to become just as good of an Apex player as she is. She really appreciates the compliment, but she keeps it real and says that there are plenty of other people that are better than her. Nonetheless, Raito strongly disagrees. After seeing her being so collected during her fights, her perfect aim, and on top of that the fact that she's always nice to her team, and not to mention that despite the fact that he's the first person she's coached, her coaching was on point, he lets her know that she will forever be number one in his heart. Upon hearing that, Rion gets up, thanks him for the compliment and leaves kind of in a hurry, closing the door behind her. But just like a few hours ago, this was nothing but an attempt to cover up her blushing face from Raito. She is left feeling kind of weird after hearing Raito calling her the number one in his heart. Raito is on his way back to his room with the intent of continuing grind. But today was unlike any of his other days. He's very tired, and as soon as he enters the room, he falls face first onto the bed, where Rion was just sitting moments ago. He tries getting up but notices the nice smell that's lingering around for some reason, and instead falls asleep, feeling like he's sitting face down on Rion's thighs. Meanwhile, Rion has stopped at a McDonald's and is currently rewarding herself for her hard work by completely destroying a burger. She's also got a toy with her meal. She opens it up and what do you know? The little guy she finds inside reminds her of someone she just hung out with not so long ago.